how small businesses are using cloud services to punch above their weight. I'll use a very spurious diversion. I'll say, isn't it very topical that a 10-man Chelsea team managed to beat the best team in the world last night? Isn't that punching above your weight, perhaps? Do you think so? Okay, most of the services I'm going to cover, every one of us could set these up for ourselves, for our companies, if we wished. Okay, you haven't necessarily got to go and find somebody else to do it. So that's the first point here. That's one of the benefits of so many cloud services. But to understand my perspective, just a little bit about me, I am a heavy cloud-based services user, but I'm not a creator of IT solutions, okay? And that's a big difference. You sometimes chat to the IT creators and they talk to you about HTML and Python and PHP and stuff like that. I don't understand any of that stuff, but I do understand what it's like to use these systems and to come at it from someone who, in fact, my background is sales, marketing, business development, general business management, those sort of skills, and not underneath the bonnet, you might say. Okay? Okay, yes, I do work for Sapient IT. Yes, I've worked for a number of cloud service companies, and that's why I'm a heavy user, but again, I'm not under the hood, shall we say. Okay, these are just some of the advantages that small businesses are getting when they engage with the cloud. As an example, a small business can look really simple. It can work with teams spread in different locations. You can start to incorporate very highly skilled people for your own business area, yet they don't have to be in your office, and in fact, you might just employ them part-time. So that's how you can do it now, rather than having to take on full salaries, as an example. You'll find as a business you can start to communicate very effectively and easily, and staff can start to do things that they hadn't even imagined, and they can start doing faster than they could have even expected. And finally, the business can get excellent reporting and really good feedback on how it's working, so you can start to refine the processes you're working with. And as I said before, so much of this is so affordable. Okay, I'd just like to get a feel for all of us in the room. So we're going to have a quick show of hands on a number of topics. So the first one, if you just put your hands up and answer, who in the room is a Mac user? You can answer yes to more than one topic, okay? So it's probably about a third of us are using Macs, okay? Who in the room is a Windows user? Okay, unsurprisingly, that's the other 2/3 in the room, okay? Who generally uses a web browser different to Internet Explorer? Okay, that's good to see. That's probably the majority of people in the room. Who in the room, it's like a game, isn't it? 4-year-old kids. Who in the room very often uses more than one browser at a time? Okay, about a quarter of us can answer to that question. Who wants to access information on multiple devices? I was almost expecting every hand to go up on that basis. Probably about quarters of us. And finally, who in the room is representing companies or thinking about companies of less than 20 people? Okay, that's the majority of us. Okay, it just gives again another perspective. Okay, so here are the cloud-based services that I'm going to touch on in one way or another. A very eclectic mix of logos, quite simply. A quick question on this one. Who would estimate that they use half of these or more than half of these services? About 3 or 4 of us. Okay, I'm interested. Okay, and finally, just orienting ourselves about this, where to begin. I'm just going to jump back to a couple of conventional business models. On the left is a lead generation funnel, quite simply. On the right is a classic business value chain, but I don't think you can read these at the back, but the usual stuff of this is where you do all your standard operations, the stuff that makes your widgets and does your service, and then your support functions. The question is, where do these services mostly reside? You'll see that they either sit in the lead generation area or they sit in the support functions of the business, not in the operational side so much. And what I mean by that is, if you want to do 3D design, or you want to manufacture components, or you want to do software, you will have your own bespoke and better software solutions you can use in those areas. These support functions, these software services I'm covering, are in the support functions. But every business needs to generate leads and manage its accounts, which is what that lead generation funnel is, and you can see all the logos collecting around there. And similarly, every business needs to send emails to clients, or telephone its clients, or have a website, or those sorts of things, which is again where the other support functions fit. So all of this is relevant to everybody who's thinking about business in one way or another in the room. Okay, so how should we navigate through that eclectic mix of logos? I suggest we'll just think of the typical journey of a startup or small business. Okay, and as we go through, we'll just talk about adding the software that is required. So, the first one, I like this business plan. Let's have a business plan. This is what I found on the internet yesterday. What's the plan? I've got an idea. If it works, we'll make money. If it doesn't work, we'll think of something else to do. That's the spirit, I would suggest, of a lot of startup companies. But actually, if you've got that attitude, you will probably succeed as a startup business. So, with that in mind, the success of any business is about building credibility and building its client base. Okay? So let's just go through that. You have an idea, you give it a name. Very rapidly, there are three IT opportunities to boost your credibility. The first three, get a domain name, get an email, and get a website, are all classically getting you set up. Okay, getting a domain name in itself is very small task, but you actually can't do the second and third task, getting a decent email address and getting a website without getting a domain name. Getting an email set up, in terms of credibility, steve.hales at Yahoo or steve.com and steve.hales@gmail.com, they don't score the same credibility as if you've got your company name in there. And similarly, with a website, if you haven't got a website in today's world, you almost don't exist as a business. And these are what you need to add credibility to this idea that you're trying to promote. And finally, get a work telephone number. Again, someone phones that number you've given and it says, they get an answer machine that says, Steve and Pippa aren't here right now. Again, just doesn't add to the credibility factor as far as the company's concerned. So, let's start. Right at the start, let's go and get email. Let's change my @Yahoo, my @Gmail type appearance to the one of the company name. You can go and get a domain name. And potentially, depending on the domain name you're looking for, it'll probably cost you about £10 to register. Okay? But lurking beneath the surface of getting a domain name are quite a few topics just as you start to tackle this email one. Just listing a couple of them. Firstly, on the left-hand side, what devices do you want to access your emails from? Okay. The next question is, what software would you prefer to access, or do you need to access your emails from? As an example, does it need to be Outlook, or would you be comfortable using a web browser? The next question is, which it's still into email, is exactly how am I going to run my calendar and how am I going to run my contacts? Inevitably, this is a question you face. And then the final topic, just on this slide, is how do I sit with Microsoft Office? Is that going to be part of how my business works or not? Am I going to pay that cost? whatever your answer is to all those questions, in fact, Google Apps for Business is a very good solution here, okay? It helps accommodate and get through most of the points that I've just raised, and it does it reasonably well, okay? And the ongoing fee for something like that is about, it's actually less than £5 per user per month, okay? Now, very often, it's still preferable to get a third party to come in and provide that service for you. By a third party, I do mean a firm like Sapient IT, quite surprisingly. And you find the sort of fees for someone like that is something between £5 and £10 per month. So again, it's £5 to £10 per user per month. It's that same affordable amount, and you're using a third party to do it, using an expert who's got the assurances and those sorts of things. But either way, there are sorts of ways to go forward to get that credibility with the email, okay? Okay, so we've got our domain name and we've got professional branded email, however we've gone about it, perhaps with Google Maps, Google Apps I should say, and next we need a website. Now I'll say right at the outset that I really like WordPress. Does anyone in the room use WordPress? Okay, that's good, there's about a quarter of people. Hopefully you might nod when I say I really like WordPress, hopefully you have similar feelings. Okay, I'm not a fan of Drupal, and I've not really used Joomla, but where I'm coming from in this is firstly we're talking businesses that need to have a website alongside them from a marketing purpose. This is where I'm asking this question from, as opposed to web-based businesses. And the difference is, to me a web-based business is someone doing e-commerce or something like that, okay? The website is truly the heart of what you're going about. So you can build services like that on WordPress, but I'd certainly be suggesting you be engaging with very much an external expert to do something like that. But I'll tell you what's important to me in running a website, particularly if you're starting out or something like that. It's important that you as the individual, rather than the web development company, can do things like the following. You need to be able to evolve your own website. You need to be able to create pages. You need to be able to add content. You need to be able to edit content. You need to be able to put news posts in. You want to be able to grow it rather than every time you want a change made, you just having to speak to your web development firm. And similarly, you should be able to make those changes one set in the morning, one set in the afternoon, one set today, one set next week, one set in 3 months' time. That's what the evolution of this live advertising promotional system of the website, that's what it's about. Now, WordPress allows you to do all of those things, okay? And secondly, if you've got a good enough theme, and there are lots of themes in WordPress, it provides a very friendly user interface to make those sorts of changes. Getting your own WordPress site off the ground is totally feasible, okay? And again, Google Apps, if that's the route you've taken with your email, would probably be very much part of that solution to starting to get your WordPress site up and running. There'll be a few other little things you have to overcome, like hosting your website. And again, you'd find in places like GoDaddy is another system that would help you host it. And you could probably get up and running for about £100. And most of that would actually be hosting fees, okay? Now again, this sort of thing is very often nice to use a third party, an expert in that area. Does anyone know any in the room? Yes. Okay. And typically, what would the fees for that cost? Something in the region of about £150 to £600, depending on what you want to have done. Okay. So again, the first route, doing it yourself, highly affordable at £100. The next route, as I said, £150 to £600. Excuse me. Again, both highly affordable ways of going forward. If you're going your own route, as I said, there might be hosting issues of HTML or CSS type challenges. It depends on how comfortable you feel either with the knowledge in that area or Googling for answers in that sort of challenge. Also on this slide, I recommend Google Analytics. It's absolutely invaluable. Probably initially you won't need it, because if you're going back to this example of a startup company and moving forward, initially you probably just want your website as a placeholder. People hear about you, think about you, just want to go and find something else about you. They're going to go to your website. It's going to happen anyway. But as time moves on and you're doing more promotional things or things like that, you want to start to have feedback in terms of what is working, what isn't working. Google Analytics is a service, again, very easy to use, very easy to plug into something like WordPress, and again, free of charge as a service to use. Okay, so we've got our domain name, we've got our branded email, we've got our website. There's that one other challenge to go over, which is the Stephen Clipper up here right now, and one item number 4. You could go and get a second BT license. Relatively, it's actually expensive, and it's a really limited way to go. Okay, an alternative is VoIP, and VoIP is hugely versatile. There's a list of the sorts of things that VoIP do, and the fees for a VoIP system are probably somewhere in the region of £5 to £11 per month, and the telephone calls are sort of internet costs. They're not BT type costs, they're less than that, they're more like Skype type costs, quite simply. So your way of going, of getting that second line, to get that sort of branded feel, perhaps to have that auto attendant, to be able to do telephone conferencing with clients, to even transfer somebody from your office here in Ideaspace to your colleague's office over in the other side of Tottenham, and to do that as though you're both in the same room, that's the sort of thing that the VoIP system does for you. And the sorts of charges to do that compared to the BT line, so the second BT line solution is cheaper to go with VoIP groups. Okay? Okay, so I'd actually suggest those 4 things. Domain name is needed to do the others anyway. Branded email, website, and VoIP. They're your external ways of giving yourself greater credibility. We now start to get into areas that are perhaps internal to how you operate and other things. And in my experience, the other topics I'm going to touch on. The first one, top left-hand side, is note-taking. We'll talk about that in a second. The second one on the right there, the top right, is file sharing and backup. The third one down the left-hand side, believe it or not, is customer relationship management, CRM. The one at the bottom is things like email shotting and newsletters and surveys. And the one on the right is market scanning. Let's touch on those 5 systems very quickly. Okay, note taking. We all take notes. Every meeting we go into, you name it, note taking. And starting a business or being involved in a rapidly growing business, one of the first things you start to find is that there are huge learning curves happening everywhere. Massive amounts of new information being thrown at you all the time. And quite simply, I have to say, in comes the service called Evernote. And I can't praise Evernote enough, quite simply. It's the cloud equivalent, and I've written here, it's the cloud equivalent to an endless, hands-free notepad or black book. Only it's much better. Okay? It works and synchronizes across PCs, laptops, tablets, phones, and web browsers. It stores notes, meeting information, photos, web pages, audio. It does audio to text for you, and just so much more. And you can share it from between you and your colleague. It's just unbelievable. And then when you want this information, was that in that black book or that black book? Or where did I put that black book? For instance, pull out your phone, go to the search space, type in John or something that helps you, something you can type in a meeting, and that note will come up to you. was there on your phone. You didn't even carry anything around. And how much is this service to me? It's an unbelievable service. Well, like most cloud-based systems, actually, the first level of the solution is free. Go out there, sign up, and start using it. Download it onto your system. And the premium, you've got to watch out for that hefty charge on the premium system. It's £4 per user a month. Okay. Okay. Next, I'm going to cover CRM, customer relationship management, keeping track and maximising those leads that are being generated in your lead pipeline. Time for the CRM system. Now, I've used Salesforce, and I was chatting to Al earlier about Salesforce. Any other people in the room that use Salesforce? Wow, that's interesting. Salesforce is probably the leading benchmark cloud-based CRM solution. Is anyone in the room using other cloud-based CRMs? Okay, that's better. I'm glad to see it's not what they've been overtaken necessarily. And Salesforce is, anyone who's used it, it really is a very, very good system. However, it's very expensive in my view. It's 120 from there. This is there on their website. Our most popular edition is $125 per user per month. And I can tell you, we start to get a few sales guys, and that's starting to get very expensive in your startup business. There's some other systems. I really quite like Zoho, and very recently I've been impressed with something called Podio. And Zoho is a CRM, probably does 80% of what Salesforce does, and its fees for the equivalent of additional fee are $12 per month. And in fact, for up to 3 users, it's free of charge to use regardless. Okay, classic sort of cloud-based solution. And Podio, another system, probably coming a bit like Zoho actually. Both of them initially came from project management working together, and then they started to bolt on CRM solutions. But Podio is another very good system to use, very versatile, very capable. Its fees are $8 per user per month, and again, it's free for up to 5 users, so 2 recommended systems. Both of them have a sort of a modular build-up and an app structure, the bolt-on type thing, bolt them into other services. And initially, in my experience, when you're using CRMs, you want to record customer information, contact information. You then want to record client meetings with them, and then finally, you want to start recording your opportunities. And now you can start to see which opportunities are going somewhere. But actually, once you really start to get going with your cloud-based systems, you then find you want a system that will start to bolt on and plug into your other solutions. For instance, you start to see already the Podio and links as an example, which starts to go on and on from there. So these two systems are very much recommended, and they're both highly capable. Okay, file sharing and backup. And at one level, these two systems here, Dropbox and Syncplicity, they're absolutely excellent. The sort of things they do, automatic backup of your files, and they help synchronize files between you and your colleague in another office. Okay, just not involved with it. Once you set it up, it just takes place. They do have limitations, so they're not perfect, but they are evolving their solutions. But to give you a flavour of the sort of limitation they have, it's more the fact that the synchronization is too good. And what I mean by that is you and your colleague are working together, and you've worked on that document, and you created revision C, and called it revision C, and then you worked on another one together, and so he's called it revision D, and he deleted revision C, and you wanted to go back and get revision C. Why did you delete my document? And the system is so fast that it's deleted off the system. So the usual complaint is it's too good. Having said that, you can go back and get that information at some stage. It's not as though it's lost forever. So these two systems are very, very good. Again, the sort of pricing starts at 2 gigabytes. For 2 gigabytes of storage, it's free. okay, sharing that sort of story together. And then the sort of ongoing fees. Syncplicity actually offers slightly better business-oriented solutions, particularly for a growing business. We won't go into what those differences are just now. But Dropbox works out at $9.99 per user per month. You get 50 gigabytes of storage. And Syncplicity works out at £12.99 per month. And again, you get 50 gigabytes of storage. Unsurprisingly, Sapien offers a managed file sharing service built on Syncplicity for typically 3 to 10 users. If you need to collaborate with somebody in a different office or a different area and you're not using one of these services or a service like this, then you're really missing out on how you can effectively be much more productive and much more efficient. Okay, on to email marketing and doing things like market surveys. Now here, MailChimp. Has anyone used MailChimp? About a quarter of the people use MailChimp. MailChimp is an unbelievably useful and capable tool. Okay, for about $10 per month, it enables someone to send email campaigns to 500 people, as an example. And you get plenty of information feedback from that. You even get to see how many people have, for instance, opened the email, and if you put live links in that email. And as an example, that was you may have seen the email that we sent out. That was done on MailChimp. If anybody pressed on Book Now, we can see that happening in the service quite simply. We also had that plugging into Podio, and then we could see people registering, just getting emails every Friday. Here was registering for the system. We didn't have to go looking for that information. I can see anyone booking at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, for instance. Now, SurveyMonkey, moving on. As the name implies, it's a questionnaire and feedback platform. Okay, it's got a very capable free service. It's got slightly different software as a service model, which means that if you want to go beyond the free service, which often means that you might want to brand things yourself rather than have a SurveyMonkey appearing in places, then you pay £299 per annum. But again, it's, once you're getting going as a business, these are arguably affordable numbers. The feedback survey for this event is actually done on SurveyMonkey, so get a feeling for something like that being created. If you fill it out on paper, then we'll probably at some stage type it into the system. But if you fill it out online, or you fill it out using your smartphone, if you've got smartphones here this evening, for instance, just go straight into the system and record the information. Okay. So whilst I'm on this topic, we've got here Google URL shortness. To me, I've used it. This is a bit of a gimmick type place. It's the sort of thing that takes a very long URL address and turns it into something like Google.gl, as you can see there. And at the same time, it will give you a QR code. I always like asking this question. Has anyone in the room really used a QR code? So that's actually a higher proportion than I expected. That was about 20% of us. Well, for the rest of us, we can all use a QR code this evening. If you can get out your phone and you've got a QR reader, just point it at that code there will be at the end, and you'll see where it takes you to. Similarly, the same QR code is on the page there. Okay. Again, these are ways of just capturing information very quickly, very easily. Okay, finally, market scanning. Keeping up with the news in your small business or your business area. Newspapers and magazines are dying. The delete button in my email system is just being overworked, quite simply. And how do you get time to scan information? Going to the website, so that multiple plans. And in comes a service like Google Reader. And quite simply, sign up to the RSS feeds for the sort of news posts or the sort of blog posts or the things that matter to you, and you'll start to get them coming to your Google Reader account, which you can go online and look at, which is fair enough. You can have it every morning. I'm just going to read the stuff that matters to me, the things I'm interested in. Even better, get Google Reader or an equivalent RSS feed on your iPad or your iPhone. And again, that information will be there for you when you want to read it. And you're sitting on the train, something like that. You don't have to just have it cluttering your inbox, as an example. And the final thing to mention is things like social mentions and track QR. And what these are your ability to monitor people speaking about your company or your brand or your clients. You can get searches. You can say, I want to know when anyone mentions Sapient.it, as an example, anywhere out there on the internet. And these posts will give you a report on a daily or a weekly basis. So you don't even have to go looking, just see what sort of social mentions are happening. Now, social mention is a limited system. Their website seems to be there are issues with their service at the moment, but their service is free. Tracker is actually a much more capable system. It generally charges something like $18 per month for you to have 5 live searches going on. Okay. I'm conscious of the time, which is why I've noticed I started to speed up. I've only got 2 slides left. The first one is this slide here, talking about or showing all the things that I didn't talk about. From the obvious, like Skype and Facebook and Twitter, to things like to-do type systems, which are very much personal service, but Toodle-do, and remember the milk, the 2 good systems. There's something on that I certainly can't live without, now that I'm using so many cloud-based services, and that's LastPass. And that's the way you end up bombarded with different usernames to remember, bombarded with different passwords to remember, and that system is taking that right off your hands. Where's it go? So, very quickly, in summary, if you can't read that at the end, something the table at the end is not important. I'll just quickly point out these down. In summary, small businesses can use the cloud to very much punch above their weight. It makes you hugely more capable and much more capable. And very often these services are inexpensive or free, and that's whether you organise it using themselves, to set it up yourselves, or whether you use a third-party provider like Sapient. All the services that I've mentioned here, I recommend, because I've used them. But in fact, what I still did, and they're all sort of leading in their areas, but I still asked myself the question, which ones did I like most anyway? So which ones did I score 5 stars? And it turned out that it was WordPress, it was Google Reader, it was VoIP, and then finally, very much, it was Evernote. Okay? So, thank you very much. At the end, please give the feedback on both talks via the form or via the QR code or whatever. And now I'm going to hand over to Doris. Okay? Thank you very much.